Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today begins a journey through Lothric with Dark Souls 3. I want to talk a little on this game before we begin. If you'd rather jump into gameplay, I will leave a time code down below. So, what do I think about Dark Souls 3 on the whole? This game is very much the true sequel to Dark Souls 1, where Dark Souls 2 went in a radically different direction, did its own thing, has very little to do with Dark Souls 1. This game very much feels like a continuation of Dark Souls 1, and for the most part I think that's what we all wanted. Although I love Dark Souls 2, it's a very polarizing sequel, so I understand why From Software, especially with Miyazaki directing once again, would produce something that is far more akin to the first game than the second game. Saying that, I do think this game doesn't do enough to iterate on the really good changes of Dark Souls 2, like a proper dual wielding system. The character building is just not quite as good in this game, nor is the build diversity. So unfortunately it ignores some of the very positive changes from Dark Souls 2. However, it does acknowledge it to some degree. We will get into that as we play through the game. That being said, I think this game's amazing. It has perhaps the best combat in the series. It's way faster. This game came out after Bloodborne, so it kind of took some of the really good elements of Bloodborne and applied them to the Souls series. It also has probably the best level design in the series. It's got the best graphics naturally, as this is the only current gen game, or the only game that was developed for current gen. I know Dark Souls 2 is on PS4. The boss fights are incredible. Multi-phase boss fights are the norm here. They're really dynamic and challenging. And the OST, as you all know, is also incredible. So on paper, this may very well be the best Dark Souls game, and you can certainly make an argument for it being the best Dark Souls game. Whether I think so, I don't know, that's a tough call. All the games are very, very good. I do love this game though. There's certainly some criticism that can be applied here. I don't love everything about it. As I've said, it's a very safe sequel to Dark Souls 1, maybe too much so, to the point where it struggles to have its own identity. There's a lot of callbacks to Dark Souls 1, there's a lot of fan service. Most of it's inoffensive, but there are moments where I think perhaps they went overboard. Anyway, enough on that. Let us begin a new game.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Perhaps you've seen
It
it.
is called
Maybe in a
Lothric,
dream. Right, that's Dark Souls 2.
where the
I've never played
transitory
these games
lands
back to
of
back
the
like
Lords
this.
of
It's been a
Cinder
really interesting
converge.
experience. But correct me if I'm wrong, does every opening cutscene start with a yes indeed?
Venturing north,
This is a great cutscene. It really sets the mood and tone of Dark Souls 3. And similar to Dark Souls 1, it sets up the main players, the big bads that you'll be fighting later in the game.
the fire fades
Which is awesome. It's odd that Dark Souls 2 does something entirely different there. Dark Souls 2 doesn't do much to really give you any context to what's really going on. And I definitely think the opening cutscene of Dark Souls 2 was probably made when the game was very different to the one we got. That's just speculation, but that's the impression I get.
of fire is threatened.
The bell tolls, and unkindled shall rise. That's not what it says.
Earthing the old lords of Cinder from their grave.
But yeah, in this game, you're not the chosen undead, you're not the bearer of the curse, you are now unkindled ash, summoned from the cemetery of ash.
Aldrich,
This is a great cutscene though. But yeah, you can already see the parallels to Dark Souls 1 from the opening cutscene. And there is a lot here that calls back to that game, for better and worse.
watches.
Again, not all of it offends me. These guys are rad. It is nice to get a cutscene that introduces some of the bigger threats that you will face later on in the game. It kind of gives you something to look forward to, and it gives the encounters more weight when you actually get there. You'll be like, oh shit, it's Yorm or whatever. Good stuff. Good stuff all around. Gotta say though, as imposing and awesome as Yorm looks here, The fight, not so great. However, we won't get too much into that right away.
Only in truth, the lords will abandon
I love this
their
game, man.
thrones.
Let it be known this is a great game. If you are only going to play one Dark Souls game, I would recommend Dark Souls 3. If you are trying to get your friends into the series, Dark Souls 3 is the way to go. It's a lot more streamlined, it's easier to get into. Dark Souls 1 and 2 can feel clunky by modern standards. I kind of like the clunkiness, but I can see why that might put people off. And this very much feels like the very best of the series. At least on paper, like all the elements are there. It followed Bloodborne, man, which is a fantastic game, as you all know. And I think it's better off having learned from that game. If they had kept to the very slow natured combat of Dark Souls 2, I don't think this would be as well received as it has been. Right, character creation. What build we making? What build we making? We are making... Right, our name is Hermes, for some reason. We are male. We are mature. We are going to be a warrior. We are going to make a refined build. Or a quality build. Which is essentially strength and dex combined. We're going to take a young white branch for reasons I will get into. We're going to go slim. We're going to load up a face preset. This is a feature, I believe, that was first in Bloodborne, where you can save your favorite faces. Speed up character creation. I've obviously got quite a few here. Some of them are absolutely hideous. Yeah, sure. I won't spend too long here. That all looks good to me. We're making a refined build. And that gives you a lot of options. 40 strength, 40 dex. You can wield a lot of stuff, not everything, because there are more specialist weapons for spellcasters that you won't be able to use without int or faith. But otherwise, most melee weapons you can use. And we're going to aim for the Hollow Slayer Greatsword, which is a boss weapon that can be obtained very, very early on. It does bonus damage to hollows, of which there are many in this game. It's a Souls game. Fucking everything's going hollow. And greatswords in this game are just fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I don't like them in Dark Souls 2. In Dark Souls 1, they're okay. In this game, they just feel really good to use. Right, so we start with an axe. What's changed here? A lot has changed here. Let's go over the things that are different. Right, rolling. Look at my stamina bar up there. You can roll for days. The combat in this game is super fast paced. It followed Bloodborne, where that was just such a fast game, and you were really encouraged to be aggressive in that game. So everything is faster here, and honestly, I think it's a good change. I think the combat is the best it's ever been in this. However, the PvP suffers for this reason alone. I'm playing offline because I dislike I'm playing offline because I dislike the PvP in this game, right? I dislike it. And the fundamental flaw is that the rolling is too spammy. It's fine in PvE, but unfortunately the PvP suffers. Everyone roll spams. Rolls are very hard to punish unless you have a straight sword, and straight sword's boring and meta and one-dimensional. I just don't enjoy it, so we're playing offline. What else has changed? Well, we have a mana bar top left, that blue bar you see. What does that mean? Well, that's your source of casting spells, so you no longer have casts or a number of charges. It's all based on your mana bar. But also there are weapon arts. This is a war cry. It gives me a little damage buff, and it also allows me to use these R2s, which are awesome, but quite hard to land, honestly. And essentially, the weapon arts give weapons even more utility. There are some really cool options. And following trick weapons from Bloodborne with the craziest movesets we've ever seen in a Soulsborne game. I feel like they kind of had to introduce weapon arts to give weapons a bit more personality. Because if you go back to Dark Souls 1 and 2, the movesets in that game are very limited. Which is fine, because it's built around it, but you definitely have more options here. I think you've got running R2s now, which do jump attacks. Rolling R1s as per normal. Rolling R2s. Charged heavy attacks, which also were introduced in Bloodborne, I believe. Another thing to mention, We have 2 Estus Flasks. We have a traditional Estus Flask for your healing, and we have an Ashen Estus Flask, a blue panda pop, which, as you might have guessed, is for your mana bar. And this is an interesting system, right? Because you will have a certain amount of Estus. It's up to you to allot your Estus how you see fit. You have to split your charges between Ashen Estus and Healing Estus. So if you are a spellcaster, you're going to want to distribute more into Ashen Estus so you can use your spells. Whereas if you're a melee-focused character, which I am, we're going to focus predominantly on healing. I won't even bother with blue Estus for the most part until later on in the game when we have Estus to spare. So do bear that in mind. But it's a cool system. You got to pick carefully, especially in co-op as well, because as a co-op summon, your Estus potential is halved. So I feel like spellcasters in co-op are fucked, really. Just got to get good and not get hit. This is a giant crystal lizard, and I wouldn't recommend fighting this if you are new. However, good source of souls, and we're going to want the Titanite scale that he drops, which will allow us to upgrade boss weapons. As I have mentioned, we are aiming for the Hollow Slayer Greatsword, which we will get quite early on, actually. This is going very, very well. I can't land this riposte. Well, it's not a riposte. Visceral attack, whatever you want to call it. He down. Yeah, got him. But this is kind of an additional challenge in the tutorial area. And most likely you're going to want to do this when you're a higher level, or skip it altogether. You get plenty of Titanite scales. That's actually going to be very useful to our character early on. In the meantime, we're going to use the Battle Axe, which is a pretty reliable and strong early game weapon. I might even chuck a Raw Infusion on it for more base damage. Scaling isn't going to do much for us at the moment. The moveset's nice, it's quick. Everything is faster in this game. It's quite mad. Fast rolling is the norm. If you are under 70%, you have a fast roll. And as you can see from the stamina bar, you can roll for days. Which is nice. You kind of need it. You do need it because the boss fights in this game are crazy. The movesets are insane. It actually retroactively makes Dark Souls 1 seem really kind of slow and a little bit simple and basic. And if you go back as far as Demon Souls, like fighting bosses in that game, having played Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, like they're really simple. They have like 3 or 4 moves. So yeah, things have definitely changed here. Bosses are more intricate than ever before. Anyway, speaking of Demon Souls Remake. Holy shit, I leapt out of my chair when I saw that. I can't believe it, guys. I cannot believe it. And interestingly enough, once we've wrapped Dark Souls 3, obviously we're a long way off as this is episode 1 of what I anticipate to be a long series. I'm actually going to jump into the original, I can call it that now, the original Demon Souls on the PS3. I fucking love that game. I cannot believe we are getting a remake. It looks so good. And I cannot believe once again Sony have convinced me to buy a console for one fucking game, dude. Man. Genius though. They know what Souls fans are like, man, and they know what Bloodborne did for the PS4. So it's very, very smart for them to do that. Oh, good. Right, that's a shame. We won that. That's a Titanite shard. We want to upgrade ASAP, really. For more damage. Nice. Going well so far. Where Dark Souls 2 had a very long adjustment period for me, I feel like this game just... I don't know, it feels... The transition from 2 to 3, I don't know. 3 just plays like a treat, man. I really enjoy it. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not struggling here. Famous last words. We'll see how this goes. Iudex Gundyr, I did a cover of this. I remastered it. Well, I got my friend to, Adam Cox. Shout out Adam Cox, the man, the myth, the legend. I'll link that down below. It's actually the outro for my my Let's Plays. But download it, please. It's heavy. Alright, this is a fucking great boss fight, man. It's actually quite hard. That was a mistake. Did not exhaust all of my stamina. Right, let's see how we get on here. Oh! I wanted to parry him. Alright. I'm going to see if I can land a parry here. Because you can parry this dude. Fucking hell, dude. Parrying is harder than it's ever been before in this game. I'm getting partials. And I'm going to die. There we go. Thank you. That's what I wanted. Nice. Right. He's transformed somewhat. Phase 2. Get used to multi-phase boss fights. You want to hug this side of him, really. He'll fuck you up from a range. But if you do this, you're fine. Nicely done. Hurrah. Coiled sword. Alright, going good so far. That's probably the hardest tutorial boss in a Souls game. I mean, there are only 3 though, right? Asylum Demon, Vanguard Demon, or just the Vanguard, who looks amazing in the Demon Souls remake from the footage we've seen, man. Looks absolutely amazing. And this one, Iudex Gundyr. I actually think this might be the hardest Souls game, if I'm being honest. But I also think it's the most streamlined and it's the easiest to get into. For a number of reasons. We'll get into them as we go. The kick is back. No longer do you have a guard break. But it functions much like the guard break from Dark Souls 2. However, it does not have the range or tracking of the guard break, so I think it's objectively worse. However, I do not PvP in this game, so it's not too much of an issue in a PvE playthrough. Right, we've been embered because we killed a boss, and what does that do? That gives you a little health bonus and allows you to participate in co-op and summon people, which we will not be doing because we are stubborn and we solo everything on this channel. That's just how it be, though. So yeah, but once we've cleared Firelink Shrine, we're gonna ow. We're gonna pump pretty much all of our souls into health, and you can get quite a lot of health early on, and that's just going to be very good for survivability. And this game is tough, man, especially early on when you don't have many Estus. You have 4 to begin with, although it's currently allocated 3 healing, 1 ashen. We are going to change that because I don't really fuck around with the blue panda pops. Weapon arts are nice. I like them. I like that they're here. But I'd rather heals, at least early game. When we have more Estus, we might consider having at least 2 or 3 panda pops. But we'll see how we get on. And the war cry is nice, for sure. I really love... Let me show these off again. I really love these R2s. They're just hard to land, man. You don't get hyper armor when you're charging them up. So landing them is actually very, very difficult. Right, the true boss of the first area of Dark Souls 3, the Sword Master. He hits hard. He can parry you. He's a dex scrub. Must be careful here. He's a little spammer. He's very reactive. He will quite often wait for you to attack before doing anything. However, we'll be okay. You kind of just want to... Damn. Spammer! You kind of want to just try and sit outside of his range a little bit. You don't want to trade because he will fuck you up. He also has infinite mana and he's able to do that move indefinitely, which as a player would actually consume like 1/3 of your blue bar, maybe even half of it. So yeah, NPCs also don't play by the rules in this game. They never have, though. They never have. NPCs don't have stamina in the same way the player does. They just have, I believe, they are programmed to give you openings. It's not a case of they've exhausted stamina. So I complain about stuff like that, but I understand why it's a thing, right? No. No, you won't. You will notice some frame drops, guys. This game does stutter on my computer, regardless of the settings. We've got them on medium settings. So I do apologise. It's kind of just how it's going to be. My PC is not incredible. It's not bad either, but yeah. Certainly newer games are really kind of pushing it to its limit. I'm probably going to have to upgrade soon. Right, Firelink Shrine. Remember Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 1? So there are lots of moments in this game that are the embodiment of, you know, the Leo DiCaprio meme where he points at the screen? It's kind of like that. It's like, oh, I remember that. Oh, no way, that's from Dark Souls 1. Oh, he's from Dark Souls 1. That's a Dark Souls 1 reference. I actually just IRL pointed. Like, why would I do that? Here is one such instance of fan service that I'm a little bit mixed on.
Well,
Andre, he's back. Why? I don't know. Time and lands are convoluted in Lothric. Oh, we don't have an Estus shard yet. A lot Estus. So, yeah, as you can see, if you're crazy, you can go all blue. And really use those weapon arts and spells. And it's really cool because you can kind of cater it to your play style. If you're a god, then you probably need less healing. You can use more soul arrows and whatever else depending on your build. But for now, we're going for... I could have done this later because we're going to get a shard. We're going to go do the tree skip. If you're not familiar with that, you should be, because this is well worth doing on any character. Any new character, you should do this because you get some good shit that's going to make things a lot easier for you. One of the giant trees first originated in Dark Souls 2. There are moments where it does have references to Dark Souls 2. But not enough in my opinion. I love that game. I don't think it's represented as much as it should be in this game. And I think it's... Although not so much recently. I've seen a lot more love for that game recently. But around the release, it was a little bit... not upsetting. I don't care that much. But, you know... the backlash that game received. Oh, for fuck's sake, man. They've changed illusory... Dude, I'm consistently losing my train of thought. So they've changed illusory walls again. In Dark Souls 1, you hit them. In Dark Souls 2, you press A. In Dark Souls 3, you hit them. From Software, could you just pick one and stick with it? It's fucking confusing going between these games. Right, we got an Estus shard up there. So we can get another flask charge. And we also got the Silver Serpent ring, which will give us, I think, 10% additional souls whilst equipped, which is wonderful for an early game character. There is no soul memory in this game, which is what we all expected, really, because that was... A lot of people hated that system. I didn't really mind it. But matchmaking is now done on level, and also based on the level of your weapon, which is a much better system for stopping twinking. So if you've got a plus 10 weapon and you're level 5, you will not be able to connect with other level 5s unless they have made, I think it's a plus 8 weapon, which is a really good system for preventing twinking. And I think soul memory was not the right way to address that, because it didn't do much to actually prevent twinking. It just made it, well, a little bit more... You have to be a little bit more creative with it, I guess. So you have to level up at an NPC in this game, much like Dark Souls 2. And I do miss bonfire leveling. That was just the best way to do it. But I think they do it to kind of have more lore pepperings and stuff. I don't know. Perhaps it gives it more weight when you're actually leveling up with an NPC that's kind of spouting exposition from time to time, stuttering. My God. We have just been up here, but I missed a crystal lizard, so we're going to go get that. What is with these fucking stutters, man? Right, I don't really know what I can do about the stutters. I swear it's not my options, man. Like, I shouldn't have to drop anything to low. I have a GTX 1060 and an i5 and 16 gigs of RAM. This is an older game now. Should be fine on medium. No, I don't know. I just think it stutters. Some games do, right? Fucking gorgeous though, man. Look at it. Right, one thing I have yet to mention. When I first played this, I got stuck in this area. I thought they were going to go for a Dark Souls 1-esque pseudo-open world. But no. You actually have to place the coiled sword that we took from Iudex Gundyr. and sit at the bonfire and warp to the high wall of Lothric to progress. And I remember being incredibly confused at first because I thought that we would just be able to progress by exploring. And I was really excited to see them take a stab at the Dark Souls 1 approach to level design once again. However, they didn't do that here. And I can understand why. Because Dark Souls 1, as amazing as the world design is in that game, and how awesome those moments are when you kind of realize that you've come back to somewhere that you were many hours ago, like the parish to the Firelink Shrine shortcut, that moment, it's incredible. It's really unforgiving for new players. You can get very lost, you can get into some sticky situations. If you've ever been cursed in the depths, you are fucked. You have to just walk out of there and find a way to cure yourself. It can be rough. So what they've done here is they've streamlined it, and all your essential NPCs are in one area that is isolated from the rest of the game. And yeah, I was a little bit disappointed at first, but I understand why they've done it. They did it that way in Bloodborne also. You just have like a hub and you warp to and from. And I think it's more conducive to better gameplay. And a better experience for the player. However, it does mean we don't get a Dark Souls 1-esque open world, and we probably won't ever. Because as amazing as it is, like I've said, it's a little bit unforgiving for some people. Anyway, let's level up.
Very well. Then
Very well. Take nourishment. Right, we're going to get that to 20. And we're going to get that to 15. Right, we're currently embered, but look at that health bar, man. We're not even out of the first area, the fucking hub area. Not even in the first proper area of the game. Damn. Yeah, so that's a good thing to do early on, because scaling isn't going to do much for us. And we are a refined build, which means we want endurance, we want health, and we want strength and dex, and everything else is kind of, we're just going to ignore it for the most part. So, yeah, we are swimming in health already. 993, that's insane. Let's rest. Right, we got 5 flasks. Obviously, you can get more as you progress, and you also get undead bone shards, which will increase the potency of the flask, which is lovely. Anyway, I realise this hasn't been the most interesting episode because I've just been talking about the systems at play here, because it's very different to Dark Souls 2 and even Dark Souls 1 in some areas, and there's a lot to say before we really dive into it. So I just wanted to do the kind of tutorial area and talk about some things about this game. On the whole, this is a fucking fantastic game. It's very different to Dark Souls 2. It's not very different to Dark Souls 1. Anyway, guys, I hope to see you in episode 2, where we will tackle the High Wall of Lothric. Fantastic area, very much the undead burg of Dark Souls 3. It's fucking wonderful. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I hope to see you in episode 2. Have a good one. Bang your heads, as always. See you later.